Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Golden Rosa Tarot. I know it's been quite a long time since I've done a reading, and that brings me to the topic of today's reading that I want to ask Spirit about, and that is how do we deal with the feeling of overwhelm in our life? Because I've gone through a period of time in my life when I've felt very overwhelmed. And that's been both on an emotional level, in the physical realm. Um, Basically, in most of the ways you can feel overwhelmed, I have been there lately. And I know with the given state of the world that this is a common feeling that a lot of people are having at this time. And so I just wanted to come on and ad- address this collective overwhelm that a lot of us are feeling or experiencing, whether directly in our lives or just because of the world stage at large and everything that's going on. So I'm going to start off the reading with just burning a little teeny tiny bit of sage. I try not to use a lot of sage, but I do feel like it could be beneficial for all of us to come into a feeling of peace and clarity to start this reading. And just call upon Spirit and ask, dear Spirit, would you please come through today for us with some messages about how to deal with the feeling of overwhelm that a lot of us are experiencing at this time. So I do want to just backtrack with the caveat that I haven't posted anything for a while, and that's because I've been going through a feeling of overwhelm, and it's just kind of in the last couple days that I'm starting to sort of put my feet on the ground again. That's not to say that the issues in my life have resolved or gone away, but in my experience, when you're going through something very overwhelming, there's sort of this initial, like, kind of punched in the gut feeling, like you've just been carried off by this big wave, and it's very terrifying. And if that's the stage that you're in, I just want to extend my deepest condolences, great sympathy, compassion, and love towards your situation. Um, I I'm just saying this because I don't want anybody to watch this reading who's going to be stressed out by it, because like I said, I'm doing this reading from kind of being a couple months into some very stressful situations, and I'm now reaching the point where I can kind of put my feet on the ground and start to take back my energy and start to work with the things that have happened in my life and start to see how I can use these as catalyst for my evolution. And if you're just very freshly going through a very difficult experience, um, it's perfectly normal and natural to not be there yet, you know? So if watching this reading gives you a sense of comfort that down the road you will start to regain your sense of clarity and your sense of personal power, and that in this is a comforting thought to you, then by all means, please watch it. But I think we need to honor exactly where we're at in these situations. In my experience, it's the things that cause us to feel just completely uprooted that can bring the greatest transformation in our life. But when we're going through that initial feeling of being uprooted, it's like you kind of just have to get through it, you know, like by whatever means necessary until you can start to feel your feet on solid ground again. So I just want to honor where everyone's at in their life, whatever energy you're in. If you're not quite ready to start being philosophical about your situation, if you're still in that sort of gut punch, the wind's knocked out of you, struggling to get your air, then it's really important to just honor that and know that that is valid, know that is, you know, a part of the experience that we all go through. And I myself went through that experience, and I myself am just now starting to reconnect to my own like personal power in these situations, you know. And like I said, for me, like, these situations aren't necessarily resolved, but I'm resolved within myself to start bringing my own energy and power to these situations. And so, yeah, I thought today I'd ask Spirit for some advice for us, you know, when we're going through an overwhelming time and we're ready to start kind of just processing it, when you're not just in that like initial impact. So anyway, much love and blessings to you all. If you are going through a time of overwhelm, I'm deeply sorry for whatever it is that you're going through that's making you feel overwhelmed. I know it's a very very difficult thing to feel, and that most of us are feeling it or will feel it, in these kind of crazy times that we're living in. So anyway, that's my little my little speech to start off. It's nice to be back with you all. I missed you. I hope that I won't have any more really overwhelming times that take me away from coming to connect with you, but I'm human too, and I'm going through this journey just like everyone else, and so we're here today. All right. Dear Spirit, can you please give us some archetypes and some energies to work with when we're processing things that feel very overwhelming to us? Which archetypes and energies would you give us to rely upon in times of overwhelm? I'm just going to take that top one because I feel like sometimes I'm just kind of a messy shuffler. Like sometimes, kind of most of the time. All right. So starting off with the tarot here, we have, first of all, we have the Nine of Pentacles. And you can see this is a card with a woman in the garden. She's wearing a beautiful robe. She looks very peaceful. She has a little birdie, like a little falcon or something in her hand. See, she has the falconing glove. And when it's upright, this card really represents having kind of having your life together, like whether it's your actions or not that have brought you to this place, you're feeling pretty peaceful and enchanted. You're just happy in your garden. And so, when it's in reverse, it's kind of showing the opposite, what happens when we sort of fall from the garden, so to speak, when you have this comfort zone, when you have your happy place, when you have a sense of serenity about your life, and then all of a sudden it's just literally turned upside down, like what then? Next we have the Knight of Wands, and in the Nine of Wands we have this figure who looks very battle weary. They're very exhausted. They have a bandage on their head. They're holding up all these wands to defend themselves, and it's a card of exhaustion. It's a card of a long battle. It's all a card of being very near your wit's end, but not giving up. So I'll have to think about the implications of it coming in reverse for today. And then we have the Two of Pentacles. The Pentacles are dealing with the earthly realm. And we have this figure who's juggling these different pentacles, trying to find the balance in between. If you look in the background, there's this ocean, and there's ships on the ocean that it looks pretty stormy out there, It's like, it doesn't look like a wave I'd want to be on, So it reminds me of a Rumi poem where he talks about dancing on the carpet that's being ripped out from underneath you, like how do we find our balance in these massive waves and these storms, between these contradictory things of wanting to feel secure and safe in the material realm and yet having this higher mission to evolve while we're here, like the narrative that I come back to over and over is like, we don't come to Earth for a vacation for the most part. I mean, all things are possible. There are probably souls that come here and choose to have an easier time here and sort of a vacation life, if you will. But for most of us, we deal with some really challenging things, and we're trying to balance being this little physical organism that has a will to survive with being this, immortal soul that came here to experience, mortality and fear and limitation and lack, and as a test, as a test to see like what are we going to do when we're put in these situations that are really difficult, when there's really this dichotomy between our spiritual reality and our physical reality. How do we balance that out? So yeah, it's kind of like when everything falls apart, and maybe even this Nine of Wands being in reversed, it's like, to me now the message I'm getting from this is like, there's times in your life when you can really just tough it out, right? We've all been there. You have a tough situation and you're just pushing through. But I think it being in reversed, it could imply that there's times in your life when life pushes you so hard you can't just tough it through, like some of the things that happened to me in the last month were, in the span of 1 week, I lost my job and my car broke down, and on top of it I went through one of the worst health crashes that I've had in a long time. I could not sit upright. I was too tired to speak. And so on top of having these, issues that I needed to deal with, I just actually couldn't even deal with them. I had the even more pressing issue of my health, where I was like, okay, not only do I need to like do all this stuff to, fix my life and make it calm again, but I can't even do it because I can't even get out of bed, So what do you do when you're sort of, I'll say your butt has been handed to you, when you just can't actually fight on, how do you find balance then? So anyway, these are very stressful energies coming up, which is to be expected because that's what we're dealing with right now. We're collectively dealing with a lot of stress. And so let's get into it with spirit and let's ask for some advice. I want to start with the plants first. One of my favorite places to start. I have been studying herbalism, and so I find that plants are one of the things that really get me through. Specifically for myself, I've been doing a combination of reishi and ashwagandha, which really helps me stay calm. We all have different ways of calming ourselves and soothing ourselves, but because I'm sober, I don't drink alcohol or take sort of, street substances. I have found that, the plant world does offer us like a lot of variety and different plants that actually can give you that like calm, soothed feeling without a hangover, without any addictive things. So just throwing it out there, that's kind of what I want to start with the plant world and say to our dear planty friends and dear spirit, in all things, including the beautiful plants around us, with amazing gifts and things to teach us. What are some good plant allies for when everything's just falling apart and we're struggling to find our balance in the storms of life? What are some good planty friends that want to come through for us in these kind of circumstances? Okay. We're getting holy basil. Now I have selected several decks for us to dive into today, so I'm not going to take a lot of cards from each one. But holy basil, also known as tulsi, is actually one of my favorite plants for sort of clearing away kind of a bad mood, kind of a tension or pessimistic kind of attitude. It has a very cleansing effect on my psyche when I drink tulsi tea or holy basil tea. It's a really beautiful card with the swan, and the kind of reminds me of the Ace of Cups. It's like this inner source of love, inner source of inspiration. So it's a really beautiful image there. Oh wow. I love when the little tarot miracles happen and I open directly to the card instead of shuffling through the book for 5 minutes. So here's our message about holy basil. Oh, the sparkle, the effervescence, the twinkling starry night of holy basil. What a true and joyful friend, dancing in the night, laughing in the day. This bringer of buoyancy and clear and true companionship, holy basil, a true harbinger of euphoric peace, is a brightener of the spirit. The energy of holy basil should be released into our water supply, bringing light into the eyes of the collective, curling up the corners of our mouth and letting our hearts sing out. Holy basil is a friend if you're feeling backed in the corner by my tongue is like not letting me say lethargy. Okay. Despair, hopelessness, or sorrow. Holy basil is an ally for nearly everyone, as their gifts work with the small and large stressors of daily life in ways both subtle and overt. The power of stress has taken on a life of its own in the modern world. It has become so much a standard part of our day-to-day activities that many of us view stress as normal. Stress has always been a part of being alive, but at one time was much more connected to intimate survival than it is today. Now this feeling has been culturally programmed into our existence, and a stress response is evoked around nearly any activity, relationship, or experience. We have also lost many tools for releasing stress in community, for resolving conflicts in a healthy way, and for healing. Holy basil is a glittering guide for navigating our stressors. Some people have much greater loads and are living more closely to the question of survival. But if collectively we can brighten and loosen the ties to the cultural stress and our stress response, these effects can ripple out to our shared society in ways that benefit and brighten us all. So yeah, it's a very appropriate message for what we're dealing with, because that is kind of the goal here. Is like each of us has this divine spark. Each of us has this ability to bring light into this world, as crazy as it is. But we each go through our own, traumas and chaos as well. So it's like, how do we, in this crazy time, like how do we ground into ourselves and ground into this spiritual energy, to share that with the collective. And so I love that Holy Basil is coming through with this beautiful message for us. And yeah, and like I was saying before, like if you want to get a holy basil tea, it's usually sold under the name Tulsi, like Tulsi, I believe. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, let's get some crystal friends. And I love the mineral world. Crystals are just such an easy way to dissipate some stress. You just strap some on, and they do help. You see, I'm wearing all my crystal bracelets. I've been lately for this stressful time I've been going through. I've been wearing. Specifically, was told to wear turquoise and hematite. They're both very grounding stones for stressful times. So, dear Spirit, how would you speak to us through the mineral kingdom at this time? Which minerals and crystals do you recommend for us in this stressful time? I'm sure some of you are feeling stressed just by watching my chaotic shuffling. Okay. This one wanted to come out. So we have this beautiful crystal called an amethyst phantom quartz. Its keywords are expression, gifts, and originality. Amethyst phantom quartz fosters prolific energy and opens the crown chakra to channel creativity in all its forms. Individuality is encouraged, and uniqueness in expression is embraced by this stone. Amethyst phantom quartz instills confidence in your creations and urges you to share your talents. Using intuition is a powerful resource. Amethyst phantom quartz connects you to your spiritual team to convey your ideas in ways that will stand out. Do yourself a favor and show the world what you've got. So yeah, there's some beautiful messages in here. First, when they're talking about opening the crown chakra to channel creativity, it's like Our struggles are also the source of our creativity. Oftentimes, like what's the quote? Necessity is the mother of invention. So when we're faced with a struggle, when we're faced with a difficult situation, we do have creativity as a really powerful tool in our toolbox, and it can be hard to access that when you're feeling stressed out. It's a different part of our brain. When we're stressed out, we get like activated in our sort of survival minds, and it's very hard to think of a creative solution when you're just worried about, what's happening or what could happen. And really, creativity is such a powerful tool. So any kind of crystal, or whether maybe it's not even a crystal for you, maybe it's taking a walk or whatever gets you into the flow, that can help you start to open up your crown chakra, that can help you get into your deep creativity. There's a spiritual teacher I really love, I recommend checking out if you're feeling overwhelmed a lot, and his name is Michael Meade, Meade, and he's a really amazing elder who studied mythology, and he talks about this a lot, how myth shows us that it's in the times of great duress, it's in the times of great stress that our soul has the potential to evolve the most. And so when we can tap into our creativity in the midst of the chaos, that's when we really have this very fertile ground to grow, to really become something beyond what we could have imagined. Like a lot, like if you're, I don't want to use this analogy like lightheartedly, because I know this is fortunately a reality for so many people around the world. But say your home is gone, by some natural disaster or man-made disaster, you lose your home. That's a devastating thing to go through. But we also have, if the situation's right, and I know for everybody it's not always going to be that you have the tools in that moment, but imagine it just as a metaphor, that your house is gone, it's devastating, and now what are you going to do? Is you're going to have to build a whole new house, a whole new way of living. And that can be a really long, painful process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And people are very varied in the amount of resources they have and the ability to do these kinds of things. But where we all are equal is in our creativity, So whatever has been taken away in your life, whatever's been demolished in your life, whatever's been, annihilated in your life, the one building block, the one tool that we all have is our creativity. And also our connection to source energy, which is, coming back to this, using amethyst or however you connect, to connect to your crown, which is connecting you to the source energy, connecting to your creativity, because that's really probably one of the most powerful tools we have at this time, and it's going to help you to shape the world in new ways, because as things are falling apart, they're also going to have to inevitably at some point come together, and that's kind of the focus of this reading. Is like, yes, we see in the cards, that energy of things falling apart, but then it's like you eventually get to the point where you go, okay, well, how do we put things back together? So our creativity is a major component of that. It's like, how can we dream up a new way of doing things, a better way of doing things, a more harmonious way of dealing with things? How do we build a society that's more loving and caring and inclusive? So our creativity and our connection to source are I think our biggest tools in that. And connecting with an amethyst phantom quartz is one way to be supported in connecting to that energy. So let's go now to the animals. And this is a newer deck I got, the Woodland Wardens, which is pretty cute. This one has both plants and animals. So, dear Spirit, can you please give us some advice about dealing with overwhelming things? What is some plant and animal advice for dealing with the emotions of overwhelm? So we got the crow and the dogwood, and that's intelligence. Because yes, us human beings do have intelligence, believe it or not. Sometimes it does not feel that way, right? But we do. So let's see here. It's number 16. It says the crow is an incredibly intelligent bird associated with the power of foresight and the ability to use tools. Today it's often used to signify darkness or foreboding, but modern depictions rarely do the crow justice. According to Norse folklore, the crow is a powerfully positive symbol meant to remind us of our skills and resources. It says you are capable of solving any problem. Like the crow, the dogwood has a somewhat confusing public image. Its beautiful light-colored petals convey gentleness and whimsy. Few know that its hard bark and strong frame make it an uncommonly durable tree, able to withstand even the harshest weather. And the message here is you have the tools to fulfill your goals and solve any problem that stands in your way. You only need to look inward to find wisdom and strength. So it's a good pep talk from our allies, the crow and the dogwood, that we do have agency, we do have intelligence, we do have tools, we do have a way forward, even when we feel very overwhelmed. And it might require really digging deep, and it might require calling on spirit to help us. It might require reaching out to our community for ideas and inspiration and support. But human beings are incredibly ingenious when they need to be, like we've created all kinds of things, and we will continue to create all kinds of things and out of necessity. And so whatever skills you have, like, put them to use against your problems. Like, no, you can find a way through. We're not usually given problems that we can't solve, I don't think. I mean, sometimes, yes, sometimes that's in our soul contract that we're going to, meet our end. It happens, and I'm not saying that, we can always get out of our problems, unfortunately. Well, I don't even say unfortunately, but there are times when our soul contract is up and it's time to go home. But as long as we're still here and kicking and breathing, most likely we do have some tools in our arsenal that we can apply to what's going on in our life, that we can believe in our innate intelligence and have faith in our ability to solve our problems, even when things are really difficult. So thank you, Crow and Dogwood, for that message. And I want to get one more animal card. I really like this deck. It has very good sound advice. So I'm going to get one more animal. Spirit, please help us with this times that are overwhelming. A little pep talk for when we're going through overwhelm. So I'm going to take the fox and land it on top here. Has this very optimistic looking rainbow around it. It says almost there. Interesting. It's the last card in this book. That's kind of interesting. In the blossoming, I honestly don't know what's wrong with my mouth today. I think it's that because I haven't been doing these readings. I kind of forget how to speak out loud sometimes, so please bear with me. In the blossoming spring season, little fox frolicked and skipped in the wild woods. As he played, his attention was constantly drawn to a distant light. The light glimmered deep in the forest past the rumbling river. Although he couldn't quite make out what the light was, every bone in his body knew that it was meant for him, and his soul would spark with joy when he saw it. It was as if the light were a magnet calling out to him. But whenever little fox ventured towards the light, he was always abruptly stopped by the roaring river before him. Little fox would fall into despair, for he could not unite with the light that called him. Time went on, and spring became summer. Little fox would continue to catch glimpses of a light, still filled with excitement and longing to unite with his beloved light. He would regularly attempt to reach it, only to be blocked by the roaring river. Once again, more time passed, and as autumn approached, little fox grew and learned many lessons, yet he was still faced with an unquenchable thirst for this light. Little fox became distraught and angry towards life. He often cried out in sharp howls, forsaking life for presenting him with the beautiful light without allowing him to embrace it. He grew mistrustful that life did not have his best interest in mind, and increasingly became hardened and jaded. Autumn transformed into winter. By this point, little fox was big fox, but his heart was broken, for the only thing he ever longed deeply for was out of his reach. Big fox gave up. During the early winter months, Big Fox did what he had to do to survive, but he had a hole in his heart. He walked with his head low, for he could not bear to look up and see the out-of-reach light. One night, as Big Fox lay asleep, snow began to fall. When Big Fox awoke, he was taken back at this new element he had never experienced. As he started his day, he saw a gaggle of geese standing on the river in the distance. Completely perplexed at how they were now standing on the water, he approached the river with caution. He had learned through all his seasons of life that he must be careful and cautious. As he put his paws on the water, he found it to be hard and sturdy. He gasped and thought, could it be? Could this be the path to my light? Big Fox carefully crossed the hard waters with deep awareness. He listened for the cracks and creaks in the hard water and scanned the sky for the hawk approaching. As he crossed the river with extreme care, it dawned on him that if he were Little Fox, he would have run boldly across the hard water without a care in the world and could have been hurt or even killed. A shower of epiphanies began to rain on him. He realized he had to go through all the seasons and learn all the lessons to be prepared to walk towards the light destined for him. As Big Fox finally crossed the river, he thanked Mother Earth and Father Sky and understood that he had to wait to gain wisdom that prepared him for crossing the great river. If there's something you yearn for in your heart and have been trying to achieve with little or no success, this is a profound confirmation that it is approaching. Be patient. There is wisdom in the waiting. This is the preparation time. You're gaining what you need to unite fully with what your heart desires. Endure, endure, endure. So wow, that's a really amazing story from the fox spirit here. Just those words, endure, 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 it's like that is sort of the gist of the human experience, is that we don't see the whole picture. We're kind of like it's kind of like when you're training an animal, and as the animal trainer, the situation that you're training the animal for, but the animal doesn't. They're just kind of like, why can't I do this, or why do I have to do that? But you have a broader perspective on life than the animal, and so you're preparing them for something that's going to come up, and it's going to be useful, this lesson that they're learning. And one thing I've been really interested in lately, speaking of the great light that they're talking about in this story, is watching like near-death experiences on YouTube. I've been like going down this total hole with that, but one lady was talking about how, from the perspective of 360, like everything is always okay. If we could see everything, if we could know everything, then we would know that everything is okay. And I, by my own calculations, determines that as a human being, looking at our two eyes, we're probably seeing roughly 45 degrees of reality as opposed to 360, right? Like we just kind of see through our own eyes, our own lens. And so something, this is all just kind of my deductions from watching this lady talk about the 360 view, that I'm learning to trust in what I refer to as the 315, like the 315 degrees that we can't see. If something is very frustrating, if something feels out of reach, if something's been taken away, if something's hurting us or stressing us out, to try to trust that 315 that we can't see, to try to trust that whatever life is taking us through, whatever lessons, whatever training, whatever hardship that we're going through, that there is actually a meaning behind it, and at least holding that belief can make it more bearable, like. And we were going back to the Holy Basil card that came out when it talked about the sparkly night sky above. That reminded me of the Star Tarot card. I don't know if you can see that there's stars here, but the Star Tarot card follows the Tower. So the Tower is when things fall apart and come crumbling down. I think in the Bible it says something about don't build your castle on the sand. So a lot of the systems that we're living in, a lot of systems that we live in within our own lives are kind of those castles on the sand. Like they're structures, but they're not built from, like, as opposed to a tree, which has like the living sap, which has growth, which has like a life force to it. A tower is this kind of static, hardened thing, and sometimes those fall because those structures aren't serving us anymore. But the card that follows the Tower is the Star, and that's when you look up in the sky and you see the stars and you start to understand that there's a divine plan to everything, that there's a bigger picture. And sometimes it's very hard to have that trust and that faith, and I'm not trying to make light of anyone's situation, because I know that there's people who in this world who are going through things that are so terrible that it's still a challenge to me in my faith to believe that there could be any higher purpose to it. But for most of the things that I go through in my life, I realize that I do have that gift of perception, that I can trust that if something's being taken away, like my job, then that means there's a higher purpose for that, and to not get stuck in just what you're losing, but to start to open yourself up to a greater possibility. So the little fox story is telling us, endure, endure, endure. Trust that even when things are out of your reach or frustrating, that in that waiting, you're building the skills. He was building the skills to be more cautious when he ran over the frozen river, and he didn't fall in and drowned because he knew to be cautious, because he'd been disappointed. So, I'll quit rambling, but take from the fox's story what you will for your situation. And once again, I just love how that story ended with just endure, 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 right? Like, let's just see whatever we're going through to the end, and then maybe we'll get this illumination at the end of why it had to be the way it was. All right. Just going to do a couple more here. I'm going to go to our alchemy deck. I just like to get an alchemical process to help us with the feeling of overwhelm. So, dear Spirit, what is an alchemical process? Oh, interesting. We got the raven's head. We just got the crow. Let's see what this says. All right. The Caput Corvi. I don't know if I'm saying that right in Latin. The raven's head. Right. Initiation, the ordeal, and the work begins. Though alchemy is filled with a myriad of open-ended symbols, the raven's head has a precise message. It arrives to mark the beginning of the work. This card indicates something has occurred, known or unknown, to initiate the spinning of the alchemical wheel. And with its mighty churning, things are about to change on every level. The raven's work cannot be undone, just as the pill cannot be unswallowed or the pearl turned back to sand. You may be overwhelmed or think that the journey ahead is not for you. Your doubts matter not to the raven, as its appearance signifies it has chosen you. You are ready, and the moment is now. Can you go back to the way things were? Can you pretend nothing has changed? The raven caws a clear no. It does not apologize, as it knows your destiny is great. So wow, that's a very poignant message for everything we're talking about. It says, as you step into the work, travel light. There is no need for additional baggage, literally or metaphorically. Everything you need awaits within the alchemical laboratory. So yeah, sometimes, we're just initiated, that's the perfect word for it, into an experience that we don't want. We don't want to experience this, whatever this is, it's not our choosing. And yet here it is, and it's the beginning of this great work of alchemizing ourselves. I read the other day, it's like, if you can't change your external circumstance, then all you can change is yourself, and a lot of times we're in those situations where the external circumstance is not how we want it to be. And so the only power that we have then is to say, well, I can't change what's outside of me, but I can change what's inside of me. And that is the great work of the alchemical process of turning our, metaphorical lead into gold, like refining our souls, refining our spirits, and becoming this more purified and ascended version of ourselves through these sort of struggles that we go through this, purification and burning and dissecting. And like think of anything in a lab and how it's taken apart and dissected and goes through these like really unpleasant experiences to get to this sort of quintessential essence, that we are in our soul and our spirit. So it's can be a lot of stripping away of our egos and our fears and our ideas of how we think that things should go. And it is the great work. It's the hero's journey, so to speak, of taking on those like inner dragons, taking on the outdated forms of ourselves and being reborn into something new. And most of the time, I would say most of us do not welcome this energy, but it can be taken on with a sort of courageous, heroic curiosity, if we choose, to choose to embrace the change, to choose to let it wash through us, to choose to let us go from lead to gold in our soul. So I feel like that's a very appropriate alchemical process for these times. All right, so I'm going to keep this semi-short. I'm not sure if my microphone's going to die. I haven't used it for a minute. It was kind of flashing earlier, so I'm just going to pull two more for us. I have this new Kuan Yin oracle. Kuan Yin is the Buddhist goddess of compassion. This one by Elena Fairchild focuses on her more like wild aspects. So get a little message from our Ascended Master Kuan Yin. Dear Kuan Yin, what would you tell us about the energy of overwhelm in our life? How would you have us approach a sort of overwhelming situation or emotion or circumstance in our life? All right. So Kuan Yin says, let your world spin on its axis. And you can see she's doing this dance with like a yak, I believe that is. She's actually upside down. She's like doing a cartwheel. All right, and her guidance says, there are times when change is needed in order for a dream to manifest. I answer your prayers with what is needed to bring them into fruition. Sometimes that means life will appear to be messy for a time, but know that this is nothing to fear. Although you may feel like your world has been tipped upside down, soon it will settle into a beautiful new order, and all the better to support your divine destiny. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's kind of the overlying theme here, right? Is like, it's like the saying, you have to crack a couple eggs to make an omelet, like there has to be a shakeup. there has to be a breaking open of the seed. There has to be something that allows for the birthing of a greater destiny, a greater reality, and that is usually, unfortunately, painful, messy, and the last thing that we want. But if we can think about it in terms of this divine hand that wants the best for us, that wants us to be the most strong and peaceful and evolved version of ourselves, that we're not going to get our way necessarily on that path, but we'll be happy with the end result. The guidance says, the entire world spins on an axis, tilted and turning, and because of this, seasons that allow life to flourish are created. If it was all to be held in stillness, life could not be. The tilt and the spin are essential for beauty, diversity, and the abundance of life on this planet. Your world is, or soon will be, spinning on its axis with a tilt that may feel as though it's throwing you off center for a time. True that. Though it may feel random, it's spinning with divine purpose. It's spinning so your life can flourish with beauty, creativity, and abundance too. A great change is due to you at this time and is based in love. You can try to stem this tide of change, but you will be resisting life, and in doing so, would find things more difficult than they need to be. You may do this because you believe it is necessary for you to be safe, but it's not. Can you transform your way of thinking about change? You can choose to soothe yourself with the belief that change means something more beautiful and divine is coming into your world, and there needs to be space created so it can enter. You can reassure yourself that any chaos or disorder is the divine speaking to you saying, I want to improve something for you. Let me do it. Wow. That is incredibly searching for a word. Affirming message for what we're talking about. To think about our challenges is this is the divine saying, I want to give you something more beautiful, So, okay. Thank you, Kuan Yin, for that beautiful message. And I'm just going to pull one more for us from the Sacred Destiny Oracle. Dear Spirit, to close out this reading on the feeling of overwhelm, I want to say thank you for being with us, for holding this space for us, holding us in your love. Thank you for giving us plants and animals and wisdom and ascended masters and all these wonderful allies to deal with the difficulties we go through here on Earth. Can you please give us a final closing message for all of us that are dealing with a state of overwhelm? Aww. So we have the gateway of this unicorn. That's already just such a magical card, right? It kind of just makes me think of the last card that we pulled, that our challenges are actually a gateway to something more beautiful than what we've experienced prior to them. So this Enchanted Valley. There are places on the planet where the veil between the physical realms and the mystical dimensions is especially thin. These places are called portals, vortexes, or spiritual gateways. In mythology, they are revered as places where things beyond ordinary reality can occur. Mystics, visionaries, and shamans can traverse this realm and the next through these places. In Celtic traditions, the wee folk, fairies and elves, easily moved through these portals and have access to these magical places. The Enchanted Valley is a place where these portals often appear. The sacred landscape wants you to know magic is afoot. Wondrous events are unfolding. Profound revelations and inner illuminations are close at hand. It is now much easier to manifest your dreams. This is an excellent time to take action on your visions for your future. A small amount of action now will generate much bigger results. Gateways to spirit are opening, and there are places where the veil is especially thin. Fairies and elves are supporting you. Wonders are blossoming in your life. Watch for them. Open your heart to the hallowed, holy, magical energy. The more you become aware of the small marvels in your life, the more they will grow in magnitude. So I love that. I love this idea that our overwhelm, our stress, our breaking down is the gateway to something so much more magical. And that's what I was thinking when they're talking about these portals within the physical lands, that we also have these portals within our consciousness. And that, sometimes these very difficult situations are the portals, are the gateways to something immensely more magical and powerful than what our mind could have thought of. So anyway, I think it's a beautiful place to end this reading. I'm sending you all so much love. I hope that you're not currently in a state of overwhelm, but if you do find yourself there, then I hope that the messages that came through in this reading today can help you or help someone you love in the near future. And they send so much love and blessings to your path. Okay, until next time, goodbye.